free so no obaako ne Honorable Ben Abdallah kan no ono na no ye chairman Constitutional and Parliamentary Committee Affairs Parliament yew a o MPP ni na oyo obi a wabeng pa nti ne Parliament ho nsam de won na net tinku nwa hene so wo ho mra wo hyehye nyina ta committee no ona no da no oba be kan sampa bi a kire yen ne etusu abien na ne odi ho eye Honorable Inusa Fuseni no no nso no ye MP Mobakaya NDC bere so no ye minister oye osuafo ahuru abien yew oye for transport roads na fe osambe ye for lands and natural resources ne yabete nka efe ni odi ho eye lawyer ya osompa ono nso oyobi a wasuamra wabinye ono yetahunu wa ha ne obeba be kan efe ni odi so ye lawyer ni panin Kwaku Painter ono nso meje di se wutie radio ni television a obenin o kyerɛkyerɛ nsɛm wɔ hɔ paa ene urade yɛn adom nensa yɛnsa kan obeba bɛboa yɛn ni odi hɔ yɛ owura George Amo oyo panin oda mpanimfo no baako a woda ngote so ne ni di bi okura ne executive secretary National Peace Council yo afei uber studio ha yewo Dr. Abdul Jalilu Ateku yo oye lecturer Department of Political Science amanyosam nti wo hwɛ mpanimfo yi a ne nkomo no be yede yerekɔ sisi a yense ebere na me nkomo no me nware kora adwuma na sey adwuma na fiasentem enu nti me nsa ebere kora ne edi kan no yerekɔ eye parliament ne ekoso wo ho no ye bi se so saa asemi etese ba eze die nkodu ba bi edu ana se etese anka mpanimfo wo hwɛ niam bi ba ko abien bi na nimfi asakora no mumma men na bibi adi nkyerem yare hwɛ parliament nsɛm wo hɔ na mum ne edi kan no ma kyerem se nsɛm ni bi ada Supreme Court na nunti unim dia won se de esane se ebi da Supreme Court nti ɛhɔ de yare nka ho asɛm ne ayebɛhwɛ ne politics ne mfiafia ho bi ɛwɔ ho yew na yenga yen court papa no Supreme Court no na wabe wabua sa asɛm no bua wi a afi na nkomo no be fiase yew nti ne yɛbɛkan yen nkomo nyinara obiara wudi no wadwene wo ho se ne ɛwɔ Supreme Court no de yen nkɔ ho na mum mfiafia ho no ne mfiase nyina ne dan enkyeye ɛna NDC for they want some to gwa wo parliament say nipa bi mra wodi adwuma wo parliament me kira standing order no aba say ete say wodi wo nkunwa to ezane say bibi akwachima na mpanimfo a na wo kan asem no ye banan yew many mabasa ene yang maame a oka ho oni Cynthia Mamle Morrison oye MPP ni otie guaso wagona West ni odi ho ye owura Kwame Asah-Asante ono nso ye MPP ni otie guaso suhum na ni odi hu ne ye owura Peter Yaw Buache aka oye NDC ni otie guaso wo Amenfi Central na ni odi so bio owura Andrew Asiama Amuako yew na ono oye independent member ewo fomna sampanimfu yi na sa nkomo no fa wo ho na nkomo no to aso kwae no yew nkomo no to aso kwae no ekokosi se efe etese speaker bem no okan ohwe mra wodi adwuma o parliament no ene omenyi marapong mechira constitution na ode na asem tuugwa so we declare say seat no vacant ene den say seat no sa mpanimfo no you wode won akonwa ato say na asem na opa kire majority leader owura afanyu marking ogina ho ma afutu empatem ho no original na asem ko dan court hino na supreme court no na yefi wo no court no nso de won asem bi betu abonten bu asem no ne fa bi parliament gina ho Medina opese wudi no ntu aso na emum ye baako ebien ebiesa okyerechire niam bi yo na twense wori yasaden court no kire se obebu asem no nti eyi no animanimu ya parliament ntwentwan so no masa ampanimfo no meye won adwuma se MPs no ho niam enu achi nkomo no kodu se wura speaker nso bae no ode na asem so betugwa kire se won mra wode ye adwuma no ne won hyehyei ahuru abien no ededi se yo won anya quorum saada na wo hia no enu nti no de na won awie no na nu achi no osan hwe ne nwoma mu no hu se so wo se wo si ginan a na so wo take decision enu de woni na kande quorum no wo se nipa wo parliament no wo hia ohan ayi wo friend den wache nipa no mun 1/3 yo na se wo pe se wo si ginan a 50% yo na eno na ogina so kese nipa no dodo ni ho enu nti yo nipa dodo ni ho nti obetre se parliament wonko recess woma break kakra na brepam no yo wobesanga hia na saade no wokan parliament or jan senedine akere se wakan konwagu wonim da wobeba na ho na ayedu so baby yin adu parliament nya adwuma sesei aka kakra koto aba omanyi nso aban adwuma ete ye be den wo ho nti nkomo ni mfi asenen mamenko hamana so na obi wo ho yewu opening wo ho no pacho onka ne menwa mu na mente yo emse mensaka honorable Inusa Fuseni medical adi ho adanse ne se kan no yo soafo we ndisi aban mu yo na yensaka no Miura Fuseni Mache, good morning.
Martin, Dr. Asah-Asante, na pom tse.
Oh, me huye. Me de. O ka twi fefe. Me nya nka me so mete dag.
Oh.
Why? Yo, honorable, yen se bre kura. Ye kọ yen nsam no so. Tew. Honorable, obi bekese ne akoso wo parliament nyina unhu ne den. What is your view about it? Unhu ne den. Then na ekachira why you adwuma of parliament na wo ye ayi wo friend den parliamentary committee on the constitution and legal affairs na wo ye abedi akira na wodi owura Abdallah o kan ho.
Okay. Oh, parliament first of all I mean there was any with you nyina and I say parliament it shall say from 1992 ediban asem yi bi bebre apio ho.
Okay.
Now, so upasa won tiase year this is your city na emfa asem no emra obimu to make us say the parliament majority speaker any majority and minority for year the answer that correct. Now so look, I said 1992 to 1996, now was parliament, but MPP boycotted 1992 elections. Okay.
Yo, make up.
Good. Until no one in the parliament. But 1990.
Honorable Mpacho, ma one in Kosro Kakra. Yo.
And then 1997. 1997.
You.
MPP eba parliament every say omujina was 1996 elections no.
Yo.
Okay, say Jerry John Rawlings no or winning presidential elections no.
You Makaipa.
Na NDC the winning majority in parliament.
Yo.
Na Oswafo the omuwo and ministers the omuwo na MPP NDC say and continue omu in office.
Okay.
Okay.
You Makaipa.
And na judgments are Eddie Assembly Court. Eko can say every say minister 1992 to 1996 no that tenure of office no eba ewie.
Okay.
Nti omoyi ministers bioma. Jesus ministers no eko vetting. Sprunko say anokre assembly okan anokre. The first term of Nana Adodonko, first term of Jerry John Rawlings, no.
Yeah.
All the ministers there, all appointee the members of parliament there, no more. The parliament, no.
Yeah.
Tenure of office, no, are ending, including the president himself.
Yeah.
Now, until say president, no, we need elections. Ne yes, swear in ina. No members of parliament, the Omba Frono, Omba Sway, Omo Ina. Just a member of ministers here, Omampinian Rawlings, or the Onya Bibiako, or appointee, you know. Just say a vet or mobile for.
Okay.
Okay.
Makaipa.
Now, Supreme Court Casano, NDC, ADH. These are vetting ministers in Nina. Now, that is a demonstration of the fact that the Supreme Court interpretive constitutional parliament but the actually.
Okay.
Number two, members of parliament crossing the aisle and are almost crossing carpets. And you're new in parliament.
Okay.
What are Kwame Asah-Asante?
Yo. I'm in Central.
Kwame Asah-Asante. I'm in Central. Now you're a ranking member of the Energy Committee or resign here from Parliament. Yet to by election. Or resign here, Obiam Bisano, identity or resign here. What resigning? Okay, saying why you?
Yeah, why you saying it? Yeah.
No, lecturer at the University of Ghana. Okay.
Yeah, he said.
He said, good. Now, on no resigning here, on no crossy carpet, on the crossy carpet in Parliament, all kind of statement agree, you know, or sorry from the NDC minority, or call MPP majority for Abreso. Now, do I just say, hold on. And you do I just business use, hold on. But when it's original, I can say, constitutional and Makwema obeying yes, until the seat must declare vacant, and the seat was declared vacant. Obiam Bisano identity no yes, sir. Now, okay, that is two crossing carpet. The examples na mimai.
Yeah.
Now, okay, NTN. Tenyano.
Yeah, Tenyano.
Good. Now, our parliament representing the people of Korobo. Now, we Abresu, I think that was Duajaho Abresu. Fonka. Any the Atamils, NDC, 4 by. Now, Tenyano, he decided to say, on the he will follow while in Parliament, no, over the Fonka H. Now, Parliament, Parliament, members of Parliament, particularly from the majority, from the majority then, they decided to say, Omba yi, we Eddie.
Tenyano,
Eddie. But now, Speaker Amakwin. Speaker Makwema obi and resist asam no wa parliament. Okay, Joseph Seusu.
Yes.
Over parliament as an independent member of parliament. Now, while parliament was sitting, you got pre-elections no, for the 7th parliament. Okojina MPP ticket eso. Now, you try everything to raise the issue. Say, the sitting yen declare vacant. But speaker do a again. And my point. But me examples way to let you understand, sir. The problem there, you won't see. And you Michael Quay, ne bresu, ne buyer.
Yeah.
Why? So, if a speaker says speaker, and you two partisans or leader to this confusion.
Are there not Michael Quay or a 2 partisans?
Or 2 partisans. Or 2 partisans.
I didn't know.
Let me favorite. What I say, Michael Quay or Cheremy do in our world.
Yeah, you know, you yes, politics in Ghana.
Yeah, or Cheremy idea on politics in Ghana. Okay.
Yeah, make I ain't teaching. Yes.
None of book on the Bible.
Yeah.
Politics in Ghana Bible.
Yeah.
Anyway, but I understand. So I know chronic now. We are kind of crying.
Yeah.
Good. Because Andrew Amako Esiama.
Yeah.
Okojina independent in the when you in the 7th parliament to contest election to come to the 8th parliament. No Ojina or parliament on the ticket of MPP. So that time no MPP there were 169 members of parliament. NDC there were 106 members of parliament. Let me go parliament no be. Majority for no obia unraise the issue of the eligibility of Amako Andrew Amako's Esiama in the house. Obia unraise. Obia unraise asem. And the records are there to show. And then, yet parliament one day in November. Remember, Kokwe, Eba, over transit, no, watching petition every court, no, or say, we receive a petition from the MPP party. Say, Omwayi and the Resiama, every Omo party, no, because our Kojina independent. And to say, we are member of parliament, now we are independent against your own, over pre-election against your own party, automatically we lose your seat. And the seat of a member of parliament, no, and so we were on a party's ticket to be in parliament and occupying a seat on the ticket of the party, an office of the party. And the who could Jina or MPP and now NDC up parliament, not party for no a ready. I must say, won't kind of you. Legally, how can you continue to occupy that seat? Say, we are Kubim, no office, what is our Kunu, not a Kunu for SA, or why you ready, or wouldn't come home you, won't come home you. Now, before Ombakasano, no office was our Kunu. How can you continue to occupy that office? So, I did your friend incongruity. Good. Nti Makokwe explain say every say MPP constitution Emma point ma Asiama engineer on their ticket no. Omwa yinedi in the party. Nti on timin tna parliament to be transacting business for on behalf of the MPP. In fact, on timin tna at that time the majority caucus. On timin majority caucus no because only majority caucus so the party in power. Into Ojina Sa so a rule yes Andrew Makosiama, Asiama, the Sitno, what declared vacant. So that's the beginning of Young Wusi. That's the beginning. So the Gombe say that if you hit your leg against a stone and fall, to look for the cause of your fall, no, you must go back to where you hit your leg. That's where we got the problem of today.
No.
The day that
lawyer, Mami Misa. Mami Misa. What should you call so very good history? What the young ababi do her current situation a woman? Is it a needless situation and now say just a useless adventure?
No, it's not. It's not needless. Neither is it useless.
I didn't hear.
Because so Article 97.
Yeah.
1G and H. Akasam biwaho.
Okay.
The Bakokwe interpret Assembly. As is a member of Parliament, the seat numbers with the clarificant. Speaker Backburn also interpreted our provisional. I can say, Sa seat no should be declared vacant. Nipa bimuaba abakase. Oh, so we say interpretation no wa in jurisprudence and the history of the provisional. It cannot be a provision that regulates a current parliament. So, rival interpretations are boom, obfuscations are boom, and so yenina as Ghanaians, yenina yung constitutional preamble no. See, we the people of Ghana, yenina kabo eka se a basa Supreme Court nkwa no ultimately final binding authoritative interpretation a basa provision so many any problem with a matter of interpretation at the Supreme Court. Dear Ben Potty na Article 97 1G and H DM Potty. So the young na train Emma Supreme Court akasa.
Yeah.
The young na a D3. So it cannot be useless, it cannot be wasteful exercise. It's a very important and it's part of the constitutional history of this country. After the pronouncement of the Supreme Court, students will study the decision of the Supreme Court and then becomes the new norm. Say one will say rule of law and predictability. Rule of law, there were two cardinal principles: certainty and predictability. So Supreme Court say we are say so obi coaching up a member of parliament as a member of parliament na kaniano or call parliament on another party's ticket as some way and as some way never see. So it's certainty. Citizens will be able to predict with a reasonable degree of certainty the consequences of their actions.
Lawyer Sumansa, I'll come back to you. Na I will friend then memory studio 1 minute. Na waman komona yede. Yo, waman komona. Dr. Jalilu, yo, boni tell mame. Ni akosi. What is your view? Bibi kakrebi. Na fe yanko so.
Yo, senior midasi. Say near mechanism near ekoso ewo parliament a few days ago no. Say nyina no ejina ye hang parliament na yanya no. Eno ensunsanso ni bi ina yehu ewo parliament no. Nti ameka san say one assuming say anka MPP majority no mo obeye 140 seats. Nanka e 3 afrimwa within the next 6 weeks, you know, and come the same day no ana because they will still maintain that majority. So what you say and come obey 140 seats. And a problem yaba and almost so 4 years assign 2 and 3 you know every almost side it means they will still have that majority. Coming in this near a course you know they would have just taken it say oh e be asida who say honorable MI history too.
Yeah.
I mean some of the instances that you see where you say it based on the same article. We share near Michael Kui any current speaker so no. Ni is on the same issue. Nka omo ewo that majority no a em say nka problem yi ama. So what you say. But since I akoye say na me say akoye close. Omo twe nkrofo 4 yi esan a na che say NDC abenya 136, MPP for 135. So what you say. So automatically that say NDC for the majority. And the next is a business. Why the lead the business of the So no titru and I so hang parliament no so no ibi na ye But the American say another aspect has to do with the fact say who say parliament yes say it's a house of deliberation. Abusia kuo. So what you say differences but abusia the problems within abusia fie no na mo atena se na mo aye nhihye ni ye say from the time na from hang parliament from the first 2021 yes say abaya say hang parliament no say we dikaka at that time it can be say this particular parliament no majority caucus into be be a majority caucus no e was abrebia no omoni minority caucus no omonya so I be saying what in so the be atembia no o metumi build it because the parliament no share even when some kind of majority biano they still need the other side the be o metumi deliberate na because in the first you say oman no kanko no in the ehia emayi nyina enti say majority caucus no epbibia they have to reach out to the other na omaye assume kura say nka the speaker no eruli in my view nka me nka going to the Supreme Court no nka me it wasn't necessary in the sense say ebia who read the text ebia we are not looking at the spirit near ewom na speaker no so ejina so a woman ni rule no and if I say yanya ebisa abeko so if they had just taken say okay yes majority NDC about 135 yes we only have about 6 weeks into the election. You come to the other side. So what are we going to do in order to get? We have these bills A, B, and C. Yes. Anka
within komosie woden.
Yes.
Consensus building.
Yes.
Now we use here. Anka ye medua.
That is my view.
Okay.
So what you say? Ye medua because basically the aya in nka and also aya say no. Mnyamimi who say even though you say yes Supreme Court maybe article 130 there Supreme Court na what that it's close with that power say make me I interpret the constitution can declare legislation enactment actions as unconstitutional so that you say that but my view say abrebia na say bibia na e pese the parliament near parliament be here or parliament e dey Supreme Court na one shey be do bibia say parliamentary if I say independence bia na say ye here no we will be losing it. So what you see, so it's like all the time, Supreme Court will have to be invited into almost every affairs of Parliament. And in my view, I'm say share bibia
but many also yes what can separation of powers any baby we are say
yes
it's an say
yes
separation of powers is guided by checks and balances
yes
and until department be bibia
yes
obi nso bibia oye or the hwe ne awoye no
yes
and until parliament nkwantu nyina na nanso nye bibia bibia no Supreme Court no e wo bibia oye wo parliament ho
yes
nti sankomo no eno nso wo ho minim se eno ye da foforo nkomo
yes and na make ayini say me nka say Supreme Court any power and me say na make Supreme Court
you the men can
so betimi aye but the point is say if at that particular point say kase bia parliament so e wo tumi a what is the extent of that tumi na parliament in my view say parliament take a decision be if that decision contravene any provision of the constitution certainly Supreme Court as the custodian guardian of the constitution can come in but in this particular instance na me share I say ebia from near speaker or no in interpretation and based on previous speakers and so ebia si we say honorable Kanoka why you see ni there we share amwako offense and you amwako so komina eyira eno so asiema no the same provision so what you say there was no problem and a day and about this time it's just because of the numbers na SSA in a day say e kasi e no achi the question is say naturally say e be do bibi no that parliament to me that was a parliament you know that parliament that to me no Supreme Court will be taking it away, so to me I will be losing that. So the point is, at what point in the bit me I can say parliament will to me, so parliament take a decision means a conflict with constitution. I agree with you, so Supreme Court bit me, but in this instance no a day and I've influenced a decision now speaker no take here no are infringing constitution.
So what's the it's not a question of visa when you're lawyer.
Yes.
My men call lawyer Ayuho, our friend Honorable Inusa Fuseni. Na Honorable, oh, if you so.
I know so.
Yo, Honorable, my main family question no embryo. Supreme Court, near Corsi, bar out. No say Parliament, hold on. Yeah, ABC, we are. Mayor ruling na in the meantime no ma eyimu mayor adwuma wo parliament a wogina homa sa decision na Supreme Court the buy no uhu ne dan
me Supreme Court pencil
woni ne nya woni Supreme Court nya adwene
me
okay adentia
but because me no aka some bebre I mean differentiate no emma no because on your lawyer ne
yo.
Now, when you invoke, say, who invoked the jurisdiction of the Supreme Court to interpret the Constitution now? That in any way is not limiting the duty of Parliament to pass laws for this country.
Mm-hmm.
It's only consistent with that duty. So you are trying to uphold the fidelity of the Constitution.
Mm-hmm.
Because Constitution, no, that is the basic law. Hans Kelsen, the jurist, philosopher, German jurist and philosopher, oppress our Constitution no, as the basic law, the Grundnorm. Mm-hmm. And all laws must come from that law. And the young Grundnorm, young basic law, is the Constitution. Now, say differences in interpretation, said the kind of Article 130 vested the Supreme Court with that authority to make final authoritative binding determination.
Yes.
So the Supreme Court nya kasa we obiantu be interpretation for from totobio we the Supreme Court at transam no. So you talk about consensus no, and no consensus no. All the people of Ghana have agreed say by consensus, which is captured in our Constitution, say differences in interpretation ever on the provision of the Constitution. Supreme Court. So meaning, as a market, we don't have a problem. And it doesn't affect Parliament in the discharging of his duties in Parliament. It doesn't. Said the in the J.H. Mensah case, Supreme Court say, newly appointed ministers after the effluxion of time of the previous government have to undergo vetting. And that is the practice. So it doesn't limit the power or deflate the power of Parliament to continue on its business consistent with the Constitution and the standard orders. I did the and say the supervisory jurisdiction, Parliament, Supreme Court extending a supervisory jurisdiction over the actions of Parliament.
How?
The Supreme Court say, Parliament consistent with the Constitution, their understanding of the Constitution, and the standard orders. I make a pronouncement. Not Parliament, in the Supreme Court, like I say, stay, don't interpret, don't execute your ruling. That's a supervisory jurisdiction.
Mm-hmm.
That's supervisory. And the Supreme Court knows that then they are attempting to whittle away the principle of separation of powers. Because in your say backbone wrong. In your say makokwe wrong. The interpretation makokwe edigoso. The interpretation the backbone digoso. And the subject of a challenge in court. So that's the first thing.
Mm-hmm. So
why do you say stay? Why other than also say? Now reasons the omemaya for stay no, is again very inconsistent with their previous practices. And in the consistency, is an element of the rule of law. Consistency. The courts must be consistent. Many ha na asin enough. Omo MP. You the new court. Na previously, Supreme Court say, won't mean deprive the people of a representation in Parliament. And to say, Obi, you are challenging the election of a member of Parliament. Won't mean kase that member of Parliament more on court Parliament until the final determination of the case. Won't mean kasa. Supreme Court no kasa. In many cases. Now, as end of the Supreme Court no kasa. Supreme Court no kasa na restraining judge from going to court. Okay.
Métier.
Hello?
Métier. No. Métier.
Supreme Court no kasa no restraining no. And then you say representation is very important, and I agree. Because we Article 97 now, a lack of representation or failure to represent or a default on the part of the MP, a member elected into Parliament to represent the constituency can lead to the member of Parliament seat being declared vacant. Article 94 1C. So the Constitution puts a lot of premium on representation. Many Supreme Court, they are doing. But they must be consistent. You can't say in one vein that you are restraining a member of Parliament from going to Parliament until the final determination of the case. And then, in another vein, you say, oh, no, representation is so important. So the Speaker cannot restrain those people from going to Parliament until the final determination of the matter.
But so, Honorable, when you say Supreme Court has also the power to disregard its own ruling. And here.
And under very extreme circumstances.
Is it not one of such circumstances we are confronted with today?
No, the facts are all similar. The facts is a vacation of seat of a member of Parliament.
Mm-hmm.
I said no, it was about the eligibility of Judge Kwesi to continue to be in Parliament.
Métier.
That was it. I mean, if we drill down to adhere the Omudi no court, it was about his eligibility. If you look at the 4 rogue MPs, it's about eligibility within the context of Article 97 1G. Their continuous presence in Parliament. Are they eligible to be in Parliament? So what is the difference? So then you come again. So we see representation is important. Representation is so important. Under Article 97 1C, so important. Identity na Franklin Kujo, any CDD, Omudi, Santrofi, Akpafu, Lolobi, and Lipe Assembly Court. So it is very, very unacceptable. In fact, wrong. Demonstrably wrong for Electoral Commission to conduct elections for representation in Parliament and exclude the people of Santrofi, Akpafu, Lolobi, and Lipi. Up to now, 4 years now, Supreme Court ain't had determination on that. So you see the inconsistency.
Into how we inconsistency, no? I don't know
Inconsistency doesn't consolidate our democracy. It leads to tyranny. It leads to dictatorship. It leads to impunity. And all the things made there. I say we are a scholar of political science.
Yeah.
All these things, undermine democracy.
Lawyer Mami Misao, NDC. Now we are wrong. So we attack the Supreme Court now. Uti one crofuni bia. Penny Supreme Court.
No. Nobody has attacked Supreme Court. It is vituperation.
Yeah, but
emotional vituperation.
One can send it on a kuti. You.
Good. Say with 2 parties.
Mm-hmm.
So Muko Kota now Bakulu see here. You go walk down behind that guy who has lost and see the emotional discharges. But it is not, the Supreme Court is not affected by emotional discharges. And yet the position, and our partner issue, unofficial communication on the Supreme
Court. Oh, there be individuals be na one kasa.
So just know that individuals have been disappointed in the Supreme Court, and they are airing their disappointment. Okay.
Yeah.
Some will air, but they will lament the conduct of the Supreme Court. Okay. Some won't comment. Yeah. So you don't have to. That's a democracy. That's the beauty of democracy.
But
party for no. MPP, NDB, Akase. I said we have caused it. Makokwe yes, I know. Then say 4 years ago, I did the Makokwe yeah, no. Ne and yet a year bonnet. I didn't see the uncle court. Uncle set aside the rule of Makokwe. But the MPP for be a bisata.
Mammy impression ayi wo friend den mumu bi mowo me kire ndi sifo ni bi impression say sasem Supreme Court de ayi wo friend den ne response back quickly na other ones ne de wentuma anye ne nsa ade na namo kasa ebi kasa
no quickly with alacrity again undermining the Supreme Court. Because me ne 80 high when him said you cannot assume say na Supreme Court end him say that Friday after New Market will be filing a restraining order. When is that? Because the Supreme Court has no speculative jurisdiction. Okay? So what you can say no more speculative are. Say almost speculative are not judges no one in fact. They are very busy people. In the time when the African American Friday, court process to restrain or to stay the judgment of the ruling of Bachman Tambe. And if you are registrar the Oma date no, identity no receive expert application no Oma date say but the application must be heard on that Friday. What moved him? That moved him. Okay. So if the register was sufficiently moved to put the return day for that day, no. How did this Chief Justice know that he had to empanel judges to hear an expert application that was not yet before her? How did she know? Now, where were the judges? Now, everything was typed out and neatly and ready for service on the speaker. By rule of court, on the 25, say, Obiba court for an ex parte injunction. That injunction can only last for 10 days. What were the reasons the Supreme Court gave for giving the relief beyond the 10 days and coupling the relief with the final determination of the case? What motivated them? Reasons in their ruling. Because my reasons. No. Reasons being to depart from the statutory provision that limits.
Nana, it is one more reason, Nana.
Yes, because statute no see you don't law. Yeah. Statute amount discretion. Statute no ankasa what am 10 days or ankasa 10 days. So there must be a reason for the court to say that we are departing from the provision of the statute, which is 10 days no. To couple that application to the final relief to the final determination of the case. So you see the cloud of suspicion surrounding the speed at which the decision was arrived at. The violation, if you want, the ignoring the remit of the law, the court orders, okay, and doing what rules of court orders and doing what the Supreme Court wanted. And my impression said they were being used as a willing tool of manipulation.
He no manipulate. Overs will be manipulating Supreme Court.
Well, it's a perception. My perception. Man can say or manipulating. We see perception. Let's lead to a perception. And in a democracy like ours, a perception is as good as reality. Because in other cases,
perception, no, you're wrong, totally wrong. In certain circumstances, the perception, no, and so you're wrong.
But it's a perception. So yeah, perception can be wrong or right, but it's a perception. But do we needlessly put ourselves in a situation where people will perceive us as being willing tools of manipulation? Supreme Court, no. They are all men and women who have gone through the mill to arrive at that pinnacle, the highest court of the land.
Lawyer, so
when they say, they should conduct themselves in a way not to give the impression that they are being manipulated.
Yo, lawyer, Somuna Mesamba Hobio, member Dr. Jalili Doc, baby, I ain't a beduha, any baby, I away, yo, and men we in Mr. Parliament, I had in Woho, we are political science in me. Washa near Echoes or Parliament, Washa Behawim, in what way? So what I say, my brother was chef from political, economic, and others. So Washa near Echoes of Parliament, Wahumijim, Wabeba, Nadabang or whatever, na so, about how governance ana, so, about how economy nana, so, about how society ana. Can be beach there.
That's the senior. I can say how no the there I did to so maybe a bonny being so bet to me abba. Governance in the first place, we share a brebiano say abana yato a barman say omu or mine. Ede amu and she say bebre or our some year or some a defa parliament na a and see. Say na parliament na ya adjourn indefinitely no e dey na kire say sa na manyina no best say ho so what you say em say me gidi say eno nso titiri pa na ama na majority leader person speaker recall parliament as whether no be to me as is another in terms of your first governance no how so government say higher certainly economically because you say one of the bills I think it has to do with some foreign transaction bill or pass so basically they bet me in so many so I bet me affected you say all those bills bekaya naka Ukraine e bompa say environmental offense mining Ukraine do who say university na was strike nanka ye say bia LI is it 2462 is it if I'm right say person revoking bia to have to go through parliament so sanne man nyina no eden a kire say into me maso so basically na say o man no e wo ho na say bia parliament no into be NCT because of ntawantawa bia akoso a em say the image no nkasa is another thing because you see we have just about I think 5 weeks or so 5 weeks election and abayin so there to abama no a if you say obebu man na akopum tama ebia say yebesisam so that is parliament into me city ma abayin no so into me ne opeso o ye no parliament so enye hwehwemu ni eya em say no so ebetumi aboaye ba ebi so o so ebi so o so bani agi say bibi say because ebi no feel say around this time so that some of the bills ni bi o wa ebia enema bebre wa emfa ade papa emre no na ya sesansa enema bebre enti but me I think say a bit to me in terms of your governance because say day to the bibia no say o man no aban na ya to amaye no oye hye na ebetumi aboa na ebibia akonkan na se koba ne se because of adjournment na ntawantawe na as close to here certainly kire se I mean ebetumi affect here and even I mean for members of parliament you know, at least if you saw one so almost one year because around this time you know almost person omukoye omoye omo campaign didn't answer na omaba se bia omoba be meeting na omansan yakọ so bibi say aba ebi kura wa almost want to be amakura because baby all parliament no bi so person o2 no e wo the constituency dindindi enti eyin so wa for ebi no so no almost omani agi say they will be in their constituencies campaigning so what you see na ebi ya metu no so either way you know but as omai no dey in my view no nanka was say yaba no nanka was say ye to so omo eye nhihye ye bibia omo wia ebia na omasan akọ but for now no looking at the situation no me say I don't know whether majority bet to me anya I say speaker bet me to call it parliament na nia omo dia to parliament ni me bia na omo go through but until then no dey na kire say sa na ebekoso so so no dey there ebe affect here in so many ways.
Yo. Mami nko na honorable your friend then o my menen kaka nka ba ko ebien bi na fe o my break ye besan friend bio but honorable now we are where we are now. Yes. Aniama nko ye parliament will fear with the war parliament all the time na woni mni ekoso what can we do to deal with this situation so that we can get parliament back na wonga be yedwuma ama abanso etuma ye na edwuma na parliament nso etuma ye na edwuma yewo then na parliament betuma ye from your experience
dialogue using backdoor channels say we asida ukai apalo
yes
Chief Justice Apalo
yes
in the Third Republic ukai
Mekain
a case there yesterday in the Faculty of Law and even Political Science Department. Okay.
Mekai.
Apalo, no, your Supreme Court, no, the Chief Justice. Until now, under military rule, the Chief Justice. Now, never in the Third Republic, you continue in existence all the institutions. Now, Apalo is continuing office as the Chief Justice. Now, the President Liman, Asa nominated him as Chief Justice, but in this case, he had to appear before vetting. Okay.
Okay.
The readers of the Constitution say, "Oh, Constitution say those officers are continuing in office until vetting the hobby." Now, that is to took the matter to court. Now, Apalo appeared before the vetting committee. In fact, as Chief Justice appear, but they were not kind. Or see, ordinarily, he would not have appeared before the vetting committee. But every say a boo, the Oma Edim, or Edima Parliament, he had appeared before the vetting committee out of abundance of respect.
Yeah.
And even though finally the court pronounced the process as a nullity, but he appeared. And again, in our constitutional history, we have an example. Two, there are critical issues. Said you know, Jalu Kai, and now the Dimpo.
Yeah, Jalulu
Kai. Jalulu say consultation is very important. And so the President, the Chief Justice, the Speaker of Parliament must all be interested in how to get the country out of this impasse. Because because I've worked there for a very long time as a member of Parliament. And so I'm interested in Parliament, the sanctity of Parliament. Now, the most critical bill to see at the Parliament, every electoral commission, because CI is the Parliament. to regulate the conduct of the 2024 election. The CI no Nihua. What are they going to use to conduct the elections? Even number use it.
But saying that was a CI, no, they are not going to use any new CI.
They're not using new CI, but the conduct of the election.
Okay.
They're not going to use CI to register people. The conduct of the election. How many polling stations, how many registered voters, all those. Well, you say, the special voting, because transparency requires that everything regulates. I mean, that has to do with 2024 elections. No, you must know. The CI know Parliament. So say you pass the CI no, and the CI is like automatic birth. It marches on in Parliament for 21 sitting days, and then is born automatically into law.
Honorable, apart from consensus and then view.
Apart from consensus, I see little that can be done. Apart from meeting and dialogue, and I see little that can be done than going to court to file processes to abridge the time. That is a legal way of handling it.
Okay.
Say, go to court, pray the Supreme Court, say, because of the exigencies of the situation and the fact that there are a lot of things to be done by Parliament, we pray that the interpretative jurisdiction of the Supreme Court must be expedited. And the Yamma parties file statements, and we speed up the processes so that we can make a determination so that Parliament can go and sit.
Okay.
But I think that for now, let's look at the option of dialogue. Because yes, it's true. Even if Backbone have not pronounced that majority is a minority, and it's also very true that I did a because of the split parliament, or we say hung parliament. The hung parliament is not known in presidential systems. It's a split parliament. Now, so the fact is that in the split parliament anywhere, this matter will not have attracted anybody's attention. Because the minority as then constituted was in the majority. The ramification of the decision of Backbone is that what happens to the committees that are formed by the definition of majority and minority, and a ratio is worked out for the purposes of populating the committees. What happens to them?
No, Honorable, maybe it's our last one. Now, if we were resting, na other colleagues in Suabem, your friend, then is it necessary? Say, majority leader, say, your friend, or request for a meeting of Parliament under Article 112 or 3, 112.3. Say, you know, you want to get the speaker back and all that. That procedure, that strategy, let me use it that way. Is it going to be helpful?
What?
I didn't hear.
First of all, read that provision very well.
Yeah.
So, if the conditions for triggering the recall of Parliament are met now, doesn't give you when the Speaker will recall Parliament.
Yes.
Only gives you when the Speaker will act.
Yes.
So, if a Speaker acts within 7 days to recall Parliament in December, they went over here.
Okay.
And I want to read the provision now.
No, I read it, but I wanted to hear from you.
When the petition is received,
yeah,
the Speaker has 7 days to act on the petition.
Exactly.
Recall Parliament.
Yes.
So the Speaker receives petition and decides that, okay, yes, I'm going to ask for the petition, but I'm going to recall Parliament in December. He would have met the provisions of the law. But the purpose will not have been served.
This strategy is wrong.
They're wrong.
Okay.
So legalese, still using legalese. I don't think that is what we should be doing.
Okay.
I think that we should try another strategy.
Yo. Honorable Medase, we'll come back to you, but yanko who feel like so ya call other colleagues so na one so yenu akasa yo and that was say yeba san ba ho but yeba other colleagues so Nti Dr. Jaliru ni akwai near Quay, so, Bibi okay.
Well, in all on, you can say conflict, maybe who say a legal conflict, a political conflict, and they should use political means to resolve it.
What are some of the political means?
Everyone say, if I say consensus building, so what is a conflict, cooperation, very, very important. So because a do be over far too legal, it becomes too acrimonious. So what you say, it's like open, who's a court best shell. Court because shabby, yes, say so, and no more no empha and to me build it if I say consensus now. So sometimes you need to avoid and medical can begin and say building consensus, deliberating with the other side. For me, and a bit to me, I have magic be a and can say even from the first day that about speaker really say we move 136, 135. No, if you add that,
but yes. Honorable Abdallah, Mema watching. Fache na yan hamana ya ba ku nti wagina so ache fache yo honorable what the Western Parliament we adwuma as a head of constitutional legal committee no nti wahu niam bebre nea ekoso yi mama wo view na fe nkomo no mfiase
yo minia mejoso na me chiatifo nyina
yo
na nea me pesa me kafa sa asemi ho ne se. It is unfortunate just BBC SC because a man I'm one myself dream na media person news menin na never ho a man I'm your chairman not or a ranking member and most of the times in some BBC biano any nyano the leadership in parliament any speaker included Asia a kahwasem a build a consensus and sani abamre sebedrum about the kahwasem. Tiana and Primpy, and your man a big swim with Sebedromolo. Yeah, say a bill, say a agreement you, say any other issue, a border, a mamu hono. Yani dika ekanukum, and sana yaba. Na minim di see in Tiama way by. But the fact, the point, or the fact of the matter is that, say, Ushe and summer is see. 2020 Professor Mike Okoye pencil. And the SCR and Susansu woman say a message ni biano o come so bijomo we need a kumi and san and a sign social contract. You decline a constituency. Anything every 4 years biano I also oko near to swaba. Na you renew mandate your constituency on the mound. And they say, would you mind in Swenia that will make you way through? And you're back home. You toss me in so no. The political party now, Gina so call me Sibijum. And also no, we make that party in a social contract. So, we call me Sibijuma, when you party in the Bayajuma, so 4 years on a bed, ever so. And they say, Oko, Nessa Okoya Adia, party any new. Ibia ye can party far right or left. Party no who quite say that social contract na or no sign umbichum na your friend is saying na any na what the who so ever mercy bichum. The honorable Chama Diana is see. Sanya Usha sanya facts in Sitiana. Facts are different from the SC. Party honorably as Siamana or Don, no Samre, no MPP, no. About out the Omuntimini in year you may be. You see, because the philosophy behind crossing carpet now. The philosophy says, oh, cross carpet, dear. And a constituency in a do call, you know. What that down? Party now, Uchina Suma would call me Sebejum Honomo, what that down? And you also were calling out what Nassau. You also vacated near Kotwaba. Now, yes, I didn't perform for Baba. And now, I said, oh, that's all Kawasam, not only near Nawasamba. And the honorable, I'm a second deputy speaker here, no MPP party in the bar out say, oh, and it's a party or no far no so called Sebejum. Nessa okasa on to me when you may be in here. Any impliedly no. Only locus and I only stand the hour Mr. Jumbo. In other words, then you are being compelled to be in parliament as an independent person. For which reason, then you must vacate your seat for a by-election to be held. That is the context within which there was a Honorable Asah-Asante, the edition. Now, the Tosomi and Sa, Mesebejani Biani won't sign social contract, Parliament in Ankara. Who said Parliament is also Article 97 of the Constitution. A underlying circumstances are seats ever vacant here. Some so. You say, I'm a resign. Whilst in Parliament, don't resign policing show. And I will say, once I won't receive a Jumhonomono, and receive the journals of some rules and regulations are also with the age. Anything else, so Article 97, I said, so we are receive a journalist who absent from Parliament for 15 sittings in a meeting without any justification, without permission from Speaker, you are deemed to have vacated your seat. Though a constituency for the two about the Okoye. Because Emrana a constitution no more. Reason here Oko Resebejum. Was a camera Sebejum a some constituency. Now some Ghana mine will buso and also concorda. And in Tina, the Resebejanibian a committee contempt of parliament here. And here parliament Parliament will quite be away from Resebejum. Did you see Nanwin? With the Casan in Yamono, your constitution, ye bobo when you can once. Every single provision biano is potentially subject to interpretation because constitution is young. There are a lot of provisions that are testing share. It is testing share there. Necessary dispute and a disagreement be banner say for constitution one dear. Listen to say Juma. Maybe I will say the court, which is the Supreme Court. And to make Kaba. Now me as sama is see here. The Okan Kai and someone Supreme Court Kayana. To say minimum the NTSC as a classroom. The interclassroom say Sanko for nine almost independent. But it can't be said. Almost independent and yet in this current parliament here. Because their social contract with parliament, the constituency, and the political party about ended January 6, 2025. Omunina baby son can say, okay, omuntimene political parties in the age maybe. And the political parties can say, where ye, yes, maybe. It is a political parties in kind. And I want to cover some receive a German kind. Let's say, near yet, even if it's a fact, crampon, you have to say, a now, if I sorry, as a sank of winning in a seats have been declared vacant. The honor. Minimum de a broad general interest. And at the talks will be more a sunny a chinamagin and say, Nanka was expecting say. And somehow Omukain, even if say a no crop crump, a queer dunia diabo these four members of parliament. Because Cronfor and your Cronfor in the channel. Cronfor and near courts. The one for Akasa and Krewa could be added into a call for no necro. It did not I was expected to say, even if only a member of parliament come and speak up from say, Quell do a diabu Monso, Bunimano. Umano, Nessa, Oman won't be yeno. It is a emran a boy dra and a new one of mine between found. Or political parties no crampana. members of parliament in a domino. Because you ain't many political parties in free. Because you can see build the consensus there. Also, you build the consensus holistically. Number one, a political party, and number two, a leadership of parliament. A dear Anko Basa, and you declare it vacant. That is fine. Say, speaker, the ono not journey a channel, and what then again, and I can look Supreme Court. Now, you also hear when you say Supreme Court, apart from general jurisdiction, okay, exclusive jurisdiction, also have supervisory jurisdiction over all administrative bodies and adjudicating authorities. That supervisory jurisdiction over all adjudicating authorities and administrative bodies. It will be a touchma our constitution depending on senior identity, say a fundamental human rights, Article 33, a court, High Court, say if it borders on the interpretation of the Constitution here, any Constitution is a court, the Supreme Court. Yes, I can't be more. I will see a channel so. According to my personal opinion, he said, yes, standing orders, no, in Chirichiri Muno, are different from in Chirichiri Mua, a constitution. Okay, at all material times, members of parliament apply the provisions of the constitution. They do the idea provisions may a simple, straight, as simple as any. It doesn't admit of any disputation. You can explain it and go away. I've got a problem behind me. And the point I'm making here is about the interpretation of the standing orders here. And it lies absolutely in the bosom of the speaker. To the extent that the speaker will not veer into the interpretation of the Constitution. It is said, as I can say, solely on the interpretation of the standing orders here, and the Supreme Court has no locus or business to veer into Parliament and purport to direct what the Speaker should do. Because it borders solely on the interpretation of the standing orders. After we did the relevant provisions of the standing orders now, a mass Speaker, to interpret it as he deems fit. Except say the caveat is except say ABA or my ruling were interpreted or master interpretation. Now DB has cropped up and on our occasion travesty of justice. India can fundamental human rights by a buso. And I say rules of natural justice and Juma. A panasadia Obibia were a victim of that interpretation. Speaker of Parliament, Amafa standing orders more. So let me kind
lawyer, so muna me misaw. So what can I say? Na bribia no Supreme Court no the Parliament no take decision na o use standing orders na enye dengara Supreme Court be hu bribia ka abem na obem a ebe se bribia no ne Parliament be kan Supreme Court be ka sa de no hu ne den enye say ye share Parliament as see a check.
Yeah. Yes, sir. Parliament has see a check. Most of the times, the Parliament costs war. The brebe, Abra Supreme Court crampon, because and some people yana is straightforward, and some people yana emfa constitution. Okay, and some people say if a constitution crampona yana dispute in him. So who say Supreme Court Bumwa? In this particular case, Emre be chairman, speaker, deputy speaker, if he's seated, or Tim Travan to him to Aban.
Yeah.
Who will be provision now? It is a very controversy all over this country. Be a challenge. Now, a chance, that provision now, you say, it be say, obetimi ato ontimi nto no na say there is a bit of dispute because it's a dispute and no na ya na the interpretation eba because the maintain ho ase yentie ho ase efasa provision it see arise there any it's unfortunate there was an interpretation bam
Intina just na okay biara maintain ho ase beba no na kire say Supreme Court as we be say interpretation bam so na okay
it's a point and say asama no eba na ye kan na obi amfa asama na nko Supreme Court dia let the speaker kana semi wie dia asa de me ka wata na untimi enti obi aso kwan sema on court and once here a border on interpretation ho no obi abetum dia court
no so no tell say border on interpretation I say okwan bi aso Supreme Court bebem
it's say ni obi the court dia obebem say ni an court dia na say at that level dia any na so be na Supreme Court so entimi nka say asemi embrace bedwam enti ya test speaker here interpretation e wrong enti ye ni anka say ye gi asem na akodi Supreme Court any said to me, this will be the court. This will be the court, yeah. Any almost about the church. Nothing in an year because ye koy any more na enyema yen tie wanse our constitution no more na Supreme Court denedi bebe mu na a lawyer for suade na a law students for so suade na Ghana for nyina so suade.
Lawyer mami misa mami mfa ba komra Supreme Court be mu o say won stay near woye no won mampanimfu yi nkokoi won adwuma as members of parliament no sade no uhune dan
the Supreme Court be kai no who say a court there say a lower court say a superior court asama wo be kampia na wo si diso because the OSHA constitution, the judicial power in Ghana is vested in the judiciary. So, a district court na masa or down crown put directed to parliament, you will see this. It doesn't matter the status of that court. Now, the Umini, Emra speaker ma a train agony, this our sitting in ano have been vacated. No, majority leader, Echo Supreme Court, Supreme Court, Prim Muno, Estates are order. Say you. Not many, I was expecting, say, Emra, speaker, the following day, Mr. Japon Bar, Mr. Jamono, who say, answer no over journey parliament indefinitely. No,
yeah,
okay, effect. He has been served with the process. Now, that process now is served on one can come will be anti.
Yeah.
Okay. Now I was expecting say he being the head of parliament. Now a seven also a fact embrace for and a fact the status of embrace for or say one advocate won't see. Now go king kind the content no more woman in art. Because the America asked me and say, a binum, it is a binum cassette. The Supreme Court of work of Eddie and Tiffany. And near back home, it's no question called Kinkai. Now, be a gun of food in a TB because as some Naban, it is of national importance. It also true. I am my observation. Nanka, I was expecting, thank you, the other say, Emra. And Mr. Japon class minority for no majority for no side. So I'm no the content of process na demand. You know what's there and then in some Supreme Court can go some for comply. Inti Nanka was a catcher minority for no say. The Supreme Court they are bringing or Supreme Court said the status quo ante should remain. Nti baby ana mo te first from konkot na ho. Se mpo majority for amakura mpo na enya hanamote nti mun pushing kokona mkokotana
nti sa hon mo ne de uhu se speaker ne ye mfomso sa na woka ne
and what ye in fact me mom there with the greatest of respect to my old friend who are handle hon situation ni because eno ka ho bintina majority for no entinya mama se bedwem hono mo because enko mu wura wa enkantakwasi kumu wura ma se bedwem wa enkantakwasi but omuzo so no they were smarter o mining no mo si pamnu twanu ene ye namma ene enti ye namma eno mama. And what the speaker also did say, okay, he has been served. Wajene Parliament indefinitely was also the right way to go. And he made the American say, the Impo Supreme Court any assembly or mu Kenya. Assembly in a big speaker so. A big speaker because yeah, I do want you the power if Parliament is recalled back here. And they say, a hina wine better. A hina majority better, a hina minority better. And the Antima resolve that issue now. Just a fair Parliament crumple back here, there will be a problem. And the answer and only be seen. Also leadership no education. Speaker share. That is building consensus. Speaker, any majority side, minority side. Nke betimi kwampona nanke the political parties lose problem. The political parties na a problem a betimi you make from. Need the peace council at the council. Na yet the peace council need be some religious high-ranking religious personalities so at the council. Because near every bano is of national security importance. That was the share Eka and Sana Omar Kolo Parliament back and Sana Mesebija Fono about Mesebijambo about the Yejuma. So Yentimi and Kasasam there will still be a problem.
Lawyer.
Yes, sir.
You Mesang about ho echiri enti aya nkwa echiri bebiri ede maasha wa ha fache me faneze young classmates aye enti na mitime kasasa anya sanga me need to me bia yo na mo
yeah that's it
we madam funti bibia no yo watchra me say consensus nhia speaker nso into me say to nanum tuo akere say yinmu metra ha yo somu wo ho na mekwa afiri no so na me ne walo yafo ni bi na wo na kasa na fe brepam no mesan aba ho bi na fe en awi asam yo meda se yo jaliu ne ekoso yi yo obi a kire na adwene okwan a yefa so ya ebeye uhu se baby a ugina no institutions na re weak another because over problem kakra basa he attack the Supreme Court, the court. Many we ni say court ni we are yemfa yemba nko baby eba ko say ye ni have you as ye intimate transfer court ni we are ye ngawu asem tietia ubehu abato commissioner o hwa abato attack wo mu nipa na sabe we yenuma wo obetuma fom na wo foma so okwan ese ye correct won nga na oni attack won efei wo behwe parliament ye bibi ka yare kire won awe gradually esa asemu kire wo se institution so no eri weak na yo
senior ni American say weakness no dey e wo ho so wo share ye institutional arrangement no I think and also a can be especially there are some constitutional
Gina so na menko lawyer sompa ho lawyer machi amiwura
ina venye mecha so ne watie for ne wa heko
fache me say ya mo Gina so ya che ya mo ni tewtewo lawyer ne parliament work holidays ya mfana sa ye ni mu da wo beba wonga John Senedine na ne akwei ebei ene ne makosi dan ne wo hawe wom na anu adura wo ene ne
We don't know what say. Métier, assembly by métier, lawyers with considerable learning than I am. And before a lawyer for me, or mobile lawyer, here be my dear. I've had the privilege of listening very carefully. Unlike many of them who think there is a problem, I don't think there's a problem. Means is so Papa. Means is so come and go to say I am but I'm not a asama a problem, mommy, and I would explain why. In legal philosophy, I am a big supporter of what they call constitutional gridlock. In the air can say constitution here work will be brave. In other places, yes, you coordinate powers. Our reading of our constitution say, oh, Supreme Court in Article 2 say, when this a high crime, so I'm this a grounds for impeachment. Now, institutional building, to me, no, our institutions name them, and then we build the strength of the institution. But all democracies that are strong, that have evolved, the questioning of the gridlock have always been the point that, and I say, that is where institutions get the clarity. That is where people fight and people seek to understand the gridlock for the purposes of clarity. It's because any problem, Mamia, what I'm seeking to say is that we have an opportunity to settle one of probably the biggest gridlocks in our constitutional architecture.
How do we settle it? Or how we
the problem is not only a legal problem, and when you force say, oh, house to say the I think that many of us are approaching the problem wrongly. The constitution not lawyers. And the Constitutional Assembly no nipa bebre. They may come and say what we should engage broadly at this time is more than just a showboating of power. And as I said, metro to me, because say no a court, any parliament. If anybody gets into a disposition or say metro baby to me, the country will come to a halt. That is where the negative side of the gridlock becomes the reality. But say a funnel as an active debate, we take it as a vigorous point of debating, a vigorous course of seeking to understand how should we build institutions. And I say institutions, then what the upside of the gridlock and the reality. We should engage in that vigorous debate beside the partisanship. MPP and NDC, the real thing is Obia use the legal construct for their interest. But some lawyers are, lawyers are MPP and NDC are your kind. This is the time we need to, and I say, be here in the form of party interest, but don't change. Near Casa, young share in some here. Supreme Court judgment. Let's measure it in accordance with law. Their parliamentary and institutional architecture now. We should debate, and I think we should debate vigorously. That is the purpose of gridlocks. But the autonomy, say it makes me and Kayente partisanship not so. And then I also think the institutions, particularly leading with the Supreme Court, has a very, very difficult task at this time. Because you see, when you say, make a court for an expert injunction, in pain, because the court, I want to say, into me ba on China me Kwame be bombing crew. Na say one friend ba kono na you purport to make a decision that the other institutions' decision powers to be stayed as it is, then you're actually plunging us into a bigger conversation. But in whatever the case is, if the Supreme Court accepts those powers, it is left to Parliament to debate it in front of the same court for purposes to say, yeah, Betty and one in terms of how then the institutional architecture leads. Meaning, I hope that me brought for the breed, yeah.
I have a break a cran, I have a break a cran, I have brass from Brafom Kakrama, yo.
But your fashion me, they make a man a question, he said, Yedika, I know. Young Jim said, baby, I drew, I was say a ding como. And Comma said, be a ding part there. Now, so I was saying, you could do you past in some tone chain. They didn't come up with something, say, Parliament, executive, any judiciary, no. Want to me, echo saying, want to me, anu echo drew here, want to me in interest any day. Into say, yes, this uncommon opportunity, I who Parliament, by your Parliament, and no see. Not by your Parliament, so I bet you to me, I could say the Supreme Court, I got to me in Doha. And then, if it works for the polity, in terms of the politics of it, yeah, when they say, more, to me, I know, because say, I bet more minor. And after to say, Obi said, now, MPP caucus, bet me, I could Parliament, MPA Parliament, and Obusa, Mr. If it's a meaning to you know, Minjin, Supreme Court, bet me, I Parliament, Tanasi, and Net, Tanasi, or Tana. Into the only say to me no even to open Parliament and to call for decisions based on quorums, no, depends on the leader of Parliament. That means that the Supreme Court can be crying now. No, you don't know, every Parliament. So, in the yes, as I said to me, no, considering that to me anymore. I say no. I was saying, woman say, yeah, to me, no, not to me, yes, they are. I bet more mine and I am born mine. Zanko Mono, I'm supposed to say, some way, no, am I opportunity say, and solve it. And I am praying that we will use the opportunity right.
No, but me, it's all, back when minimum say, every new side, and come out, many were DSC, oh, baby, I saw call. Wash a near course in na so near working, you bit my make us as an answer, wash NDC for Wujina baby, Wujinai, MPP for Wujina baby, Wujinai. Na so near ye Kenyan a bebemu. Emma, then na a defu be a bit my yaka, a being our boss, ya, a young kunya, a bit to mamma, Parliament as a babetra, never won't I, you man, no man, young water.
Miss Susan, it's more of interest that your mind, yo, ebedi party, yo, unkind. Unfortunately, in our fourth republic, yet constitution need ye more mind through the lenses of the partisan. Instead, he said, I am good party card, I am party members. Like I say, even there are civic conversations, I won't count. So, how can be that boy MPP? MPP, NDC for because all your MPP, NDC, NDC for because all your MPP. So, how can be that boy NDC, MPP, because all your NDC, and vice versa? Yeah, make an say the partisan is a vehicle. Sebi, so you come crying, every Kumasia, or be better play, within the 45 minutes, or be better car, within the 4 hours. Yeah, first, I also want to say vehicles, no, which one is more effective to get us to where we want to. And pay way no porte, no yam pay. I was say a mass vehicle, no dear name porte. Yam which one is the most effective vehicle? Because Sebi, the MPP NDC, Emma Pass 70 or many, that's all minor Juma Yabijina. The opposition because well, or mobile man, but make our more motor to decide that Parliament is the way it is. I remember some young lawyers, we had a very heated debate time elections we knew that the Parliament was split. No, argue that it would help our democracy. My other lawyer argues that because of our attitude, this will be the worst parliament. And we had a very long debate. Of course, with time, no, it seems like I've been proven wrong. It looks like I minimize the cultural and the partisan nature by which people will approach parliamentary duties. But maybe Susu said we have some of the golden opportunities to build consensus, to work in the interest of the country beyond party for me. Strategy. But say if I end up being proved wrong again, not just I said, your mind, party sem no, and what be here, change our mind is to be here.
Mammy Miss Albaku be nefe de Megawa ma or Wakotia Udumedina so. Bacho, would you say, Monamoya lawyers see case in the Supreme Court, abridgment of time. So, Wakakosre na wonga dia samano ameng any manimus had an emunia was asking me mana.
Again, Mr. Supreme Court and Casa and Matissa and Kovobre are criticizing the speed. We actually should be encouraging this. But I think that they are looking at it in light of other cases. So either someone criticizing the speed or otherwise. I think they yet to make us something to my if you say you were 40-something days now you call election. But the Janaya they call election, no. Parliament also automatically for some number of days and bills be on Malay, I am matured. At least some 21 days. The MPs were campaign in Yama. Parliament better not say after election. Which means that a binding human being ain't to mean Koso. Inti Yenina Jitum says or what in Tama, and I can't say no in Tama, a bebo management. In that light, I think that whatever application that may be filed, and I say whatever administrative process my idea is in the best interest of our mining.
Yo, lawyer, I'm say, Medawasapa, Namum Yedi Kang Facheng, say, Yamudina, Hamanosia for a long time, Miss Rawa, as I would, why? Yo, Meba Studio, Namene, Dr. Jalilu, Kasaka Kranamasha say, lawyer Pento, Nso Hamanosia na, and Mr. Mo. Na wonso wonga ka bibi kakra kire na fe yedi ofane dikan abawie na ngakọ na etusu ya bi nso Jalilu ne yere constitution asem tua wonkomo no so ntientiam
ya sine na meka ne se institutional weakness ne de eno ewo eno so ya de a how yeah in particular this assembly I discuss wo share it's like that there's that perception say eba e be Supreme Court and maybe because Supreme Court no a bit tilted towards the MPP side. Say yeah into who share na NDC for a very long say there's that perception say cases but this type of political cases na Supreme Court that perception say is most likely say beko MPP for AFA. And to share and say by abaya do don one
na perception no kware no kware mpeng bebre
well normal say perception political science perception is very key yet me analyze it a bit me aba say no kure bit me aba say enye no kure na nia easy yeah
yo lawyer Pento miura machine
hello
lawyer machine
yeah
yo edi fachen we also funti wo de yambo ne che nda fa yambo ne che yo lawyer near course was Supreme Court and no young bedu baby young do akono dan ne be ye moye lawyer fui munimuni ma bibiri dan ne be ye wo mera kwan mu na politics kwan mu ama ye ho beto ye na parliament aba betena se na won ayo aduma na afi ye nga awi afene pepepe bio dan ade ne be ye politically and illegally
or legally didn't asamano wada kwa kada court
yo
and at least in the nansa mohune there in the nansa na da mohune attorney general wa file in statement of case jade ni ya no or the judges on the workshop na why then or the boy asamano na ni na in the asam court
court in Bobua and Ombua, only in some joy and answer the Brofun, yes, statement of case.
Yeah.
Or the what to the court on the judges, with Beginado, with the Boasam, name there, what was some banner, one more that. And Attorney General, and also a necessary party to every matter in the Supreme Court. A home, from home. Every action in the Supreme Court, the Attorney General must be made a party to all these constitutional matters. And the Attorney General is not responsible. And in Pana, what will do another was somehow only a Speaker of Parliament. Only when they say that so they bandos or they bought, on the pit, as far as I'm concerned, I cannot be just there. The Supreme Court was a can. Mindian there was an hour treatment with Bubuasami. Now, Speaker Babanda, not Babochano, only answer my sister. And see, them and you make a CI, so be soon Speaker a Casa, more than them way, by Joe da Croix de Qua, and to obey them, to mediate the Supreme Court, but no bois. That woman, what's there? When you put on Diano, in Yano ye. On your plan on the no weapon to the water. When I did from a source on your do. Today, you power, no, it's some from now. By the real professional. No one said, hey. No wonder, I'd not refer now sweat of our sons on three. And see, everything I can say, you take and that moment, no. The movie in the local name, and to be some quiet. But a suggestion in Benino, the most effective and the quickest, only the Speaker, ordinary way, or the Baba. Since Parliament is not even system based on his own ruling. Now, unless we a lawyer, no, a lawyer, why, Attorney General, Nejuma, baby, and when you mirror the Abano. And she says that I can speak as Dennis Baba, but Supreme Court about some no do. My wife, only number one, in my view. Number two, there, Ubongwa, and answer there, and I'm talking about majority and minority, what now saying and Kikaono. But say previous speaker, and let me take a cana. In my mind, I was wondering there, I saw Obeshia. No, what be no agree there. I don't know constitution in Pobayana. The answer may be yes, the answer may be no. But the baby see there. For what purpose? The big better conclusion by the parliament. As one way I'm Bugafuno, Wobeshia, no one you there. I didn't worry in the program of Okanya, Ubutu Wayana. Omia, what's so confer or shall come there? Oma Bobono, Omana Banusoka Ubi. Namaye and Wagana, hey, yet, and then could see that the Martin start. If you read history of the world from France, one, baby, I was a fay, Mande, Asia, America, war constitution over 200 years old, Equal Britain, one. There are certain things here. But just there, say, Omana and Fema, Yansampo, go to Mishabi. Previous speaker, and Mr. Casano, the one, Nina, you, missing in Nay, and Nembono, maybe just that SCA, your name, says Sally. Yabafum, or your dear or Yabafum. Yabafum, we are so, or how Baba, or howling in nature, Yabushan Yansa, if you are Chinabi, Bibi Shasa, in Tantamara, because me are some have been in an Irion in the day in Ano. And you plan a weapon too, as far as I'm concerned. Because it's possible, though be a Speaker of Parliament, we a senior lawyer. How many years? Or you senior by far? Also on to Constitution as an answer there when you Supreme Court order. Why can the Parliament? No one said out the baby man on you. I have put to tell the new pen away put to the warrior that warrior no. Because this is a political season. So people, politicians, they are looking at the advantage that they can reap from the confusion that they themselves will create.
Now, lawyer, who can say, speaker no, or petu so yes, I did not, 7 when you're done.
Hey, na sabi and this on your member, you believe he doesn't have sympathies for the party. I mean, I will put it as straight as that, because at that way we would cheer no, when we would cheer kete, now what's our grow burning? When you check it, what's our grow burning? But in a way, why we would cheer? Can the speaker hide his sentiments from the NDC as a party? He cannot, even though he is supposed to. But we are not children. We not say me and my wife are not small boys.
But lawyer, someone who say over the years, why not they say a neutral arbiter?
That is what the law requires him to do. That is what the law requires him to do.
So, oh yes, I don't know yet.
Well, the other way was an accident. When we were here, as I'm supposed to need to get it, what's a grow burning? Other when we're here, you know, how can a lawyer read the Osaka Supreme Court order? Whatever the quarrel you have with the Supreme Court order, in Ghana, we have constitutional supremacy. We are not in Britain where Parliament rules. It's not true. At that by year, for Parliament, a career while we feel put by Supreme Court can question it. There can be no dispute. There never be a woman with due respect. And you didn't mean your casa there. Even there, you were Kwame Asah-Asante, there may be as I did who soon name. I didn't know also, I didn't know. Why the workers is a Osaka Supreme Court order? Is it that time that you question the order? Are you questioning the order? Are you questioning the order there? But Supreme Court, we are lawyer, you know the law. Expert afforder is one constitutional law case. No, it's a case of a contempt, a travel record to Supreme Court. In your pana, what one could not something in and a court not something in Supreme Court is very carefully there. It is not open to anybody in this country. There, what should they in your court in your and sign that something that you Supreme Court made it clear it is there up to now. And you know, court orders it and you obey before complaint. In your court, and it has, I mean, with due respect, and you demara, there are 25,000 reasons why people must learn to comply with the court order before they question it. What's the Supreme Court rule? The Supreme Court rule now when you Supreme Court in your unity. One fact branding Miss, I want you to sit down and consider the implications.
Many be Supreme Court ordinance abem went to San Gobem and you know why yes, na San Common and who then.
I want the Supreme Court in the Sabamo, all the Sabamo, one and all what I'm at. You see what they are doing with due respect and Yidmara. Obiara Obatroma Supreme Court, I'm a judge, because you see, I am a pedaman for 2 once today. Sabi, Supreme Court, in your party, they mean no one. Yankupon Mobonungo, no Bosumbiara Smobonungo. The Supreme Court, we nipa and Fumo, Honda Mamaso, and Fumo, and Wara Americans, they mediated and Fumo. 1 hour for Supreme Court, we get them for no for the constitution of our democracy. Our governance, our well-being, that question Supreme Court today. What's opinion Guara, Nensasa? Opinion Guara, Nensasa. Now, yet the mother da. I said that's a confusion here to a mime. Because Supreme Court now has what my judgment. Now, I should be able to know the man there, she say, no, you have Father Mokano to be. That is what constitutional democracy means. Nanya there, what can some onyame there? Na me am ready, me fan yejuma. That is the most Messiah Muhudi am fan for the Madeno.
Lawyer, Mammy,
yes, Bisa.
Mammy Sabacon, Ocean Commona, Ebinzu say, near many Buha, and to say, Supreme Court, Ebem, and Nawabem, Nahuniama, na Warden who say, Yenya political question doctrine. Sani a court no nsɛm bi wa ɔmfa ne nsam mem na ne ho mɛyɛ nkekan efisɛ court no de me ne ye gyetum ne enim sɛ court ni hɔ a Ghana ni hɔ obi ani hɔ wɔ mem ha ɛnu nti wɔkyerɛ sɛ yɛwɔ political issues ne yɛwɔ constitutional issue adenti ne yɛnyɛ mmerɛ bi political question doctrine yɛnhwɛ na yɛnyɛ bi wɔ ha na nea ɛnte sɛ court ne bɛm no ɔmɛm ne ɛte sɛ ɔbɛm no wabɛm saa adwene no wo ne nkrɔfo yɛ adwene saa asɛm wo ne nkrɔfo yɛ adwene wɔ ho
but you why adwene na makyerem ekɔ UK what they call a constitution when you build
yeah
they have a bill of rights they can pages no them on do tenors are impo US war constitution so if you see the copy madam mentioned and can but me sure the 10 pages bobodo if your 1960 constitution was Ghana a few pages 69 na your book and 1969 to 79 na so a book 92 that says that in spite of the written constitution now if you're 1960 if you're 69 if you're 79 if you're 92 then now you know so no ya bondwe nti de bia bibi ba na ya hwɛ ho okay yanye bibi so emphasis constitution mu aye through amendment but what the margin no up to now no what the article says here no in my honest view margin kyerem no nye there interpretation the master na wo constitution mu na speaker original the word declared them forces vacant no the interpretation is wrong as far as I'm concerned with due respect some academa no nkyerɛ dem ma be yanyame but what say atwere one e hunu tenten on tie wo Supreme Court speak an interpretation but me I like to speak my mind the moment me chama adwiri there's something called a wager a bet there you know if you know there you
can who say wrong I didn't know wrong
because I disagree fundamentally with his interpretation. What he's doing, he is seeking to interpret portions of the Constitution. I'm also my kind. No, meaning the interpretation now that too. I hear the constitutional provision relating to an MP vacating his seat and then account. The interpretation is dead wrong. Na makanda mi we amakanda me yebosoma na me nyame na ngom no what's actually one here when it's in so on da Supreme Court batna say na order to no we na mo me am mambrinu da why then get that to ho
yeah
feel there say in under the constitution no an MP na kasa wo kwan do resign or resign na wa resign. Number 2 political party bia wonano constitution otubi yeye bezi where you were there where you were. These two situations they are missing in the instant case why the NDC one case what one parliamentary candidate or who do no whether was the way film no they then or the kwakaye or the next parliament. But let me give you my interpretation, and when the Supreme Court eventually rules, which I believe it would rule one day, Oyepokoro Parliament, he has a fixed term, 4 years. 4 years, you know, so Austria, not 1 year is there. No, Nankasan resigning, he is competent and he is fit to be there. Let me tell you what, anybody who will seek to interpret a decision of a parliamentarian to change his affiliation in the next parliament on the basis that the member waka pick parliamentary or contest with due respect and maybe I would see essentially if I have a contract with them it has a term notwithstanding that no in my notice. It could be 1. It could be 2. What the Speaker of Parliament and the people who think like him are saying it there, as soon as you give the notice there, in 2 months' time, then that period, that 2 month period, you are no longer there. And it's the matter. Let's be one yard. Meaning 1 yard, na mercy. maka mankada be nyame mankada me bosom makada me lawyer na mbom no metase a makan dem provisions na or the mam no na me deneti and metase no onye MP NDC MPs and na speaker no mesi onye hia no nam de da chibiara sufu quarters obobuati me peda me yelem na metase that does not even make sense because the person has constituents. Or when you represent to a parliament, the mere fact, Mr. Awarugu, until a judge, a court, this time no magistrate, circuit court, high court, a judge has declared the marriage dissolved. Whatever, but if you want to say with 7 chain, or but if you say with 3 chain, until the day that a high court has sat and declared the judgment, the marriage as annulled, the marriage is subsistent in the eyes of the law. The yet the marriage way the can, and so no, you the impebia the necessary no can the Jamasabi Sabi, no can, on the Sabi, not the Ghana ham, no, imagine chret, neat and fat to whom, remember that to whom, made children you there. Notice now. They have actually picked forms. Then what do you mean? That's why that one thing I see when they leave parliament, who's going to represent the people there? And now should one thing I see 1 year elections in the now 1 term and so and sana. It is not possible. And see, me you did too much of the matter now. I've expressed my views on this matter on so many other platforms. The time I can only there. It's a wager you there. You have to bet him. You have to bet him there. That chibinya over to there or pronounce the more pronouncement no ya ever bind obiano wababa wakasewie na ayeden medina ya wasemaka nsumere na match maso saying for now this is where I stand. For now this is the confusion. For now this is what dividing the majority and the minority. The thing in nature no Supreme Court. You know, people are saying all kinds of things. I don't even want to go into that argument.
Yo.
So when you're in the coro, so when you're in the coro, so why you bono, so when you're in the bono, so where you? What is the law on the issue? Mr. Lawyer, Biaro, you back at the master me, catch and there. So Supreme Court can't some no time. What is the law on the issue? Now you're about to work with and catch out that there must be the civil disobedience. You must reject what he says and do what you like, on show there or what can be broke can be madam no coin. Much more show. So what is going on now is a form of civil disobedience by people we have voted for to be in parliament and protect the interests of Ghanaians. Because we saying that's it's the Supreme Court. Supreme Court. Supreme Court. They are the final arbiter. Whatever you do in Parliament, so one will interpret there, the Parliament, they have spoken. Let's amend the Constitution to express in clear words. Now, Supreme Court, they have the power and the authority. So what is going on in Ghana now is civil disobedience by the people who make the law, who don't interpret the law, but who have got a certain understanding or a certain interpretation of the law, and they are now saying that Supreme Court, one child now say one find that's blackmail.
Lawyer.
That's blackmail. Yes.
Medawase. Major one way see her. Madawase. Bribia ebe hia on. Me je de say Obama yankwang na yeti wonkomo. Aseda wode lawyer.
Amen.
That's it.
Amen. And then say maybe to be about them ye dem bia.
Mbaje you. Yo. Me mo lawyer for na mo kan bo for me discharge you. Me that's it, lawyer. All right. Yebeko hamano so na ye Peace Council Mr. Amo ababe kasa. Mr. Amo. Mr. Amo ha o me yentene ne. Yo. Oni ho a Dr. Jalilu boni tew wo institution ho na fe if you won't call.
We're talking about the institution. Say me share a lawyer baby or this ACN no. We say Supreme Court on matters of the law, on matters of the court, a supreme. But that doesn't mean say Supreme Court a supreme to all the other 2 organs of government. So what you say, Ubia or the power executive or powers are all parliament or powers and legislative powers are more so all of them until there is a separation of powers, a checks and balances. So on matters of the law, the court in that this Supreme Court is supreme. It doesn't mean Supreme Court is supreme to all the other institutions. They are supreme in all the institutions, and in the constitution. So and on a perception.
Menya sure sir, Papa Nikasa no chere say Supreme Court is supreme in all matters.
Okay, all right. Just want to.
If so, are you aware, say there is separation of powers and checks and balances.
Yeah, so all right. To the American say, who say okay, and who say na a perception as him. Who say Bagme being an NDC person, and the NDC for a buy into the there or some kind of soft spot. So trying to look at say the decision that we take here is to favor the NDC. So what you are saying, the Kasamuno.
So what's him?
Yes.
Mr. Amon, good morning. Good morning.
Good morning, sir.
Mepa ocho fachem. Sir, yamu ejira hamano so yache. Ne ya hamano.
No, it's the
Yo, ene yo. Me da sase enyanwam da se. Mr. Amon, mo de mo ye Peace Council asumdwe na mo hwehwe. Mo fiase di nkomo bi wo adenmu, mo di nkomo wa adenmu a ye nteye. So, who are you saying say near Kosi? Asumdwe baba.
Medasi penny doctor. Nichia chief for you so. Maybe we were shame pass asumdwe baba.
Adentia. Then na wenhu. Then na wenhu na yenhu ye. Then na wate na yente. Catch it.
Near Chinese. Let me say. I answer. I underestimated the capacity. The quality of our leadership, particularly those more a major political parties. One problem there. More and send the prayer how much the minimum. But Bania here pa I say music na yebia or minor soon be a bit in a year. And say history a change say almost me ejina samre no ama omayeno em say ye 2012 elections no near call ye the court could be bosumi enwo twe wo ho ni nyina echi no em say okay decision a court be buy na eben ho pa em say ye nye this our ye electoral dispute resolution in BNC. Ghana etimi ejina no ye twemu a basa bia nsi. Me say ye 2016 eso no BC esa me say 2016 bana say 2016. Eso no oman no etimi jina no president, former president officer of Babio, Mahama, and a young president of Tiso. They have shown that strength. Young Papa Rollins, Abraham, office military, Eba, constitutional rule, 1992, Honomono. Now, Mafufi said, and send the basic. Nuclear and Konjai, I a minimum Emma, a young president Kufu. I'm just giving this history. To give some credence to the fact that leadership will rise up to the occasion, and I hope they will do again. And you know, say, I mean, Budimbeka say, a penny for Mudi, Eddie Kano, or more, Eddie, a resort, dear to Wamaya, ever blow more mobile, so more deviated from it, to be a big challenge to them. So that is what. The other thing is that, I'm saying, I hope why your money I don't so, yes, I'll see a war. Pennyphobia or my one, or Mokasa, a touching. And also, men, you shouldn't take it for granted. Cry a pennyphobia, a Yapakofian, a brand not Chasano, no Peace Council, you do a group, the dear Jia near Transaffer. Sometimes on a class free. Now, besides, they might make my yabwa. You would have the chambers of Honomo.
You didn't do some so papa. Me the fans and me papa. Best say you may see. Maybe I didn't make a papa bit my see my. O 2-4. So you didn't know why yes I am the brave. Your bim no be bois. Na yirimo. Yagbon wura you won't pay for you may moi or more a bois. I saw for you on moi. May catch your mind say more or more a year behind the scenes work pilot tie peace country. A bois more minor soldier. I'm on point just and then it is so big as I didn't know Sri Lanka or more economy basano or more to book Kumu a year. I didn't know Kenya for to book Kumu. SS nipa bɛyɛ 50 every Uganda could see Nigeria and Kenya connect Ghana number. I think this has some the strength. And peace council no say nyano. Let's say oh my Ghana. Peace council no get composition no. Kuwa si ehwe ne ya. Niema ne yesese na ne ye ya. Ebetimi abo man na somdwe ho pa. Sense I'm a man sign quote to say you and I jetum and then a minute request. ECOWAS a jetum Africa Union. Omunina Batrebe, Oma Bayanchia, Omo any Casacasa, quite better swabwa. And you know, and so my Ghana Yame Ishayan, ye war and name it beer, Bonibeka say, a year structured view of no more. Boyen, you can put me Cassie. It's me a canapa and bring up me. It's me canapa, Nash a bois. The view of more, almost cancer, and the man said, yet, dear, let me say, President Cran go put me in a time of family free. NCDB. And you know, young customer, yen value. A year, assume Vienna and Yamia that Tayan, yen Shasui. When you are faced confronted between choosing peace and rice. Now, Udru Honor who said, would you suit the peace over the writer? There will be an enduring and as from Grenabina Acha. It is good you go for that. And that's, I think, the choice just the Ghanaians also make. Always. Because what you should right, yes, it can be a right today. When Sebeka, Nimum Asumria, would the bear enjoy his high right in Wasanka?
Mr. Amu, Mammy Missau, sorry. Mimisao near homework am my year or home near sir minimusa Monfamon Samun to Gassa. Nawosha Moncomona Edu Babia young Quada, sir, Asum Jabi Abana, Mohubisa.
Dabi, Menquada, Yakoda, and the Asmatri.
Oh, the Minkas Yanquada, say, Yam Fire Mumu, sir, Madim Commoned Babia, and Chibia, and Nijababa.
And no crown make us say, yet, more be and drinks.
Enti yenyi mani yenim fi mo so se emo wo ho na emum enkosi hwe sa na woka
o da bi esa so na meka na mpese meka no se yemma edwin emra even peace council say zebio yenya checks on us we can go to sleep. And you know we consistently need somebody as you be trying to say onim say the church the church. And you know, you hear a prompts like that. But you know, my can say, look, and I say, no, you go show a name to be editing come. Yeah, name say, ni padrin de only team this say, if you are not piano, why any year move, which means the panic could do and come on, your expectation may be obey any maybe. But if you are not, Uncle Banza, and you know, you always have to give room for the unexpected. But yes, share. Near our course, so near Coswa. This is a court. You see, I never say a seminal upper die court, saying in I didn't call yet the beating come over upon Tandy and Kukumadi and Nemu. Court, no, may have to make some determinations. And then I clear the vehicle do. And say injunction by a court, they rule on the substantive matter, I'm sure, in the next few days. But it's a bit so at the injunction I got to a parliament. So, Speaker, my name, friends, and on recall parliament.
You know, I'm saying more and more legalistic, and they could do peace council as a court handle matter. We can only talk about it and those things we have behind it, but not to call for mediation and say dialogue. Because the court is handling the matter. Sometimes we can do it side by side, but once our court, and everyone more any na hoyi na court ejinemu ejimujumano. We also have to pray, say, court, they will come up with not only a decision that will help address the current issue, but a decision that would address issues also in the future. Now, you could do sabi what a bimo acquire the MSF as 9 years a day if in a fabric and I send and I say the court must help us address this once and for all.
Mr. Amo, Mammy Missao, but what's your near Melquinina, Mammy, who solution back on a being be a winning say, young as a man, say, yeah, for so quanosia, a babuya, parliament, a parliamentarian speaker, and a wonga war parliament, or Quangben war fasia, a bit my boy, mine or Quanga, which is asking me out. Mode mewura nsum ntimunim baabi odancham biada ntimuhwa ho se okwanini ba ko abien
me da se doctor ne dikai o man ho do hia em say MPs no ene speaker say e wo man ho do sen amanyo ho do ana se bidemi fi ho do ebeboa yi. We quite make a person case my minka. Say, yenya or mine would draw, yema or mine would draw. I think that would be the biggest way if we have love for our country, Ghana. And may take the right decisions at the right time, at the right place. Let's say, and the kind of toss me in the snow. See who said, to me, any water. Let's say, I think we have a lot of examples around. To me, a NDC, a comma MPP, Abba. MPP, a comma NDC, Abba. In the end, in our home, or Chinan, the window. Until now, we and the BR no solo. You say, the time may come, so I don't know, Abba, Abba, it's so. Into the same Abia. Me wo police and me wo abaimont no me ya de bia e fa me stress e ntwen so say what would it be when the table change? Would you be able to stand on the same principles you are holding today? Mpamcho enoso no etimi en sa enke be boye e ma o etimi take decision dey be boye me say we are a diverse group of people no nakopon dia ba o mai ba kum when you are criteria, sometimes we even disagree with our own selves. How much more somebody you have met in Parliament? And we can not all have the same opinion about any matter that is presented in Parliament. You give room to understand when you are ye kokonasa or mine a befe. You bet me overcome any challenge that will come to Parliament. Challenges will come. Challenges will cease when we don't exist as humans again. And to never near you won't know that pay move Parliament. And yet there, every back. Let's have a beam. If you at that time, Nadia, but not many will be 30 years, 40 years, if you are 50 years now. If you are a couple of friends, never said that time with you at a time. And you know. Mumma emphasize the man so NDC agreement. Let's say members of Parliament. Now you tolerate each other. You who say, "Yame Edia Basa Yebwa." You dream here for. Say a dream. Here for who my moi. You never better. Your decisions be better because you project the poor. You may be a theocracy, be or for be or theocracy. Sometimes you mean okay, yeah. One number. How do you? How do you top what they been also be 5 cities clan no yin skakese
Into whom I you more broke a year form of away and decisions, your discussions of parliament. Yes, sir, a bebois. And may take the right decisions. Emma, a man your seminar of my car, my man who don't a dear kind, and when she said in name.
Mr. Amo, as a day or day, I'm sir, watch your wadwinning. Me did this, Yakoyang anime, near my bay yamayan. Na bribia ye hia won so sane a wo bua yen ye gidi se wo baba bua ye da wase ye da wase yo atiefu ne ahwefo se ye de enkomo no bekoye second topic ne so ye be sate abobo so nkakra yo biri so ade na mum enne mumfa nchen ne ama basa ne se ye telephone hama no ba ko nya adwumanti ebe ye ba ko but ye babo so ye koso ye be hwe yen di yen duma ne fefefe ye rehwe yen topic a edi ho eno ye galamsey okwan a ye kwin baby a was ye de a renewed fight yen afi okon foforo ase yes ye be two galamsey ase afi o mem ha no biara ho atono yew na ye bisa ye hu se nsunsan so ben na saadi wo ho mayen ehine yen adu na ni effect te den okono yen akwan akudu he men sa bere kura meko professor J ho prof wo zoom no so ya mamente wo ne
doctor bacho no wa ni di kan me ma wo achi
prof what men kan
yes
prof what men kan professor kan
yes but hello bacho me tun kan
what men kan mamente won kan
yeah bacho me tun kan pa
prof facheyen ene mpaninga yes ye no munyina kasa ene ye telephone hama no hawen enu nti ema oje so ba ko kasa wi anza no ba ko ena aba na sa mesra wo fachem yo prof maybe saw wo hwe ne akoyi a galamsey a so the renewed fight no eye adwuma ye bibi foforo bibi resesa na mamenka na sa bibi resesa ne yen ahu no biri atwam yi Britia ya president yes odi moja show ababe wurade no na yere ko okono foforo no biribiri sesa dan na wahu sa eresesa
yo that's in patch what mean kai kakra
you prof
yes oh okay yo ni di kan mechia atiefo nukuremini organized labor ni other movements sorry na nukurem ni galamsey no yade a edi o manya nukurem ni siasi ye hwe a yaba operation flash out the operation galam stop and you can name them sa operation singina aba but recent one just organized by ebaya government and so responding government are responding with additional symbolic number of soldiers and then we can say some of us we don't even support the militarization of internal security of Ghana to the question me on the ground in the me share them is a significant.
Yeah, na enunti osha nti na okun papa ye kunu papa na say sabe aguru bi na yedi
yeah nukrem ni no the first step how the best solve the problem is obe identify problem ni yi it's a problem but as a nation maybe from my perspective from where I'm sitting, me say you mean defining the problem we have. The root causes of the problems are the galamsey. No, I so powerful. You tackle that angle. In CCN measures you're taking a cosmetic, a surface and temporary decisions. Now I don't know MY because okasa ye hwa. Say that mean Debia can dan. Galamsey enya hodin wa Ghana because of the failure of agriculture. as a medium of fighting rural poverty. At the same time, you were weak regulatory regimes in Ghana. Your laws are very good, but the regulatory regimes are very weak. I don't see an issue. So coupled with the high demand of gold outside, any high prices of gold now, you witness in the last the last decade, ama incentive for illegal mining to continue. There were so many causes, root causes. I said, you said that you tackle, but we are not there yet. In the same Bibian, rush near take key decisions and solve the structural problems of Galamsey. Into no see a problem. There be a government come, be into mean tackle. Because this issue, there be a mechanic. I'm not pro Galamsey, me tia Galamsey, but me support small scale mining. Because there be a mechanic, organize this sector very well, near regulating year, near 2 year. A very, very important source of job generation, Emma Ghana, because Mikasa there be a mekanda, Mikasa more than about 1 million Ghanaians direct labor, artisanal and small scale mining. At the year to 2 year, and yet small sector, because in the last few years, we are between 36 to 40% of Ghana's good production coming from that side. And then Ghana can face this problem, a global phenomenon. In fact, you can see about 20% of gold produced in the world, a free artisanal and small scale mining sector. But sector, country women are so serious to the extent that about 60% of Ghana freshwater bodies are destroyed. Because at the time so you're gaining
near abang a cosmetics such as a sabi BBB keke mfa into memory prof sawusha enunti yenyan sakra bi a se ne nhun yenya bibi ketua ya bedan so de bibi ketua bi babuayen wo ne aban ye ana se yanko dem nkosu se enyanye.
Oh, cosmetic is a step, but we are looking at the structural solution to the problem. For example, I'm of the view say we should register all small scale miners, young group them into unions or cooperatives. A first step, because but currently we are just hostile to them. There be an entity to the extent that it make us say, "Krano, these people who approach you on they are violent." And they are violent not that because of government approach to them. They are violent because these people are not well protected. To the to me processing gold will bush. Nobody to about business, so no about the because you setting up structures to defend that sector, that business. Well, you ensure that and regulate. We are not interested. Obi about person of fact chaos manons and profit no. For example, to me, your first approach is some profile yen capture no yen number yen start engage yen forming groups, associations, whether or your license or unlicensed, yen start and talking to them. They are Ghanaians like all of us. If you say you engage the people as we are talking now, nobody's talking to the miners. Obi any miners ninka so. Sabi yanya yetumia akosku kakra any adia yen penyimfo. Any other associations, any other people nekasa. But maybe the mining district of Tapa, me say we are not talking to the miners. One more we are directly involved. We are not. You know, monkasa. Obia, sorry, a bad press nani a demon. So a serious step, a very long term.
Dr. Jerry Joe Harrison, or a senior lecturer, medicinal chemistry and structural biology, University of Ghana, or something a UTAG, or non-so secretary, Dr. Harrison Akwaba, Fachayen, as Anka Mobile with the dada, ne yang hamane hawe, in Hamaba cope, Nadodo nan war hamanaso. Doctor, Dang na Mahu, Ewo, Galamsey, mu UTAG for more information about oh, yenyai, na yen who say, you call up striking ana say ye beto aso anra legon ato aba eja to mu say strike ne nkoso other universities remente den na mahu a ekoso a mu feel say ye ndi na mo dey sa question ne bra yen
Minya medase na am say sa galam say ekoso let's call a spade a spade. Sabio Sophie enye atikuma atrikase na diama galam say abaye de tie ene eni say amanyofo e de ohun agim ohun se goldi sikawo enti wo de mfidie akasia ye de large scale mining eni etu galam say because that's easier and no nama we are where we are na ye Peter for the ehun say asasini mu ewudru bebrebo gold no so ye tu a ye de ewudru bebre na ye na kamia kwa say sesia no ye tu gold yi amasa ewudru akoye nsuom akoye nsasim enti nua na ye di na aye poison ensu aye no aye poison na say ya nhwe na ya mbo ho ban na ya mfa nyama ntutu ya da chi minum ye no o hawa beto ye no yenjirima ebedi atem
ma mimisaw inti eta say utag munhu bribia say ne aban ye o say renew fight no bribia ni munhu bribia ye
meaning service you one of the last time I watched say bibi koso you see say the two man say ye bribi na say wo ye kokwasa na say emfa ho just because of elections any voter sabi na wo ye your man before and he say ensuo ye nipa numi poison na nipa numi o just say dia koso no we friend genocide if you say ensuo sabi yo any NDC any NBB any CBB any gum o just say wo ye NDC no ye NBB obanu so aduane na awudro yi akwa asasiri mu ma body no efa menkani efa banchi efa no sabi o koto banchi ana body a umu se fisefi ana se free boss o ko ya no akoto na awudro wo ma nipa di no wo de chema cheche akwa awudro yi efa so
yo ya beba san komo no so pa e se ho no ba chire awudri nti mame ansa ketu abi nti se utag mu hu hwe ye
me pa cho de ye ni hu ni di wa dance ye hwe nkoso
yo mame misaw what the why research wo galamsey ne activities then niema no why hwehwem hu se awudru wom metals na de bi hihiem na ho niema ye nganhwe ni ya ebekum ye nyina to den
abrahu sabe se bibia emframa ye home sabi awudru yi ewo the team and say you two gold wie na de awudro frafra twi gold wie a na eja ho no emframa bo amfuturo na ekọ wiem na me no ehome no awudro wom nje ekọ mu a na akoka ho na etewo etwe ho na sele onyankopon bo nipa no sa awudro no enam se enya de a eho mfaso bebre ema nipa na enya de a na ewo se ba nipa mu ntinu ye ni okwan a efaso a ye yifiri ye body no nti enya kowura mu a na awuram nti you're not able to get rid of it like so what did he na sabi wo jaonan ni adade awuduro se nya wura mu a asa nti na wudi kakra ochen wudi kakra na wudi kakra ochen wudi kakra e bedru baby no just bone na e de bebere
den niema ti se nnuan ana se no bai bi na wo nhwehwem a e kan bibi kire en se awuduro wom
me kire se aduane bi a yedi ogana awuduro koko bofre banchi menkai vegetables ya kwansusa ntos nkruma bibiara onipa da sani edikodonum including enframa ni nsu a enframa ye home ni nsu a ye no no awudro yi levels awom no media e frightening
na ewo baby a saade ne wo ho pa na baby wo ho a eni anase ewo baby a
sesia de babia yetu agudie ena eye highly concentrated na de chene se oborim fe bi equilibrium
yo
enam se nsuo no teneko na se wo se hwia sabio nsuo ni se ya na sɛ wowɔ bepɔ so a boss second year wobɛnom nsuo no bi nti no over time no ne yɛn nyinaa will be on the same level nti ɛwɔ mi sɛ wowɔ second not indirect access to saa awuduro yi na sɛ nam sɛ wɔ nsuo mu no na nsuo ya na yɛde water nnuane nsuo ya na yɛnom nsuo ya na yɛde dware yɛde biribiara nti no over a certain period no the levels will level up nti no sɛ wo sɛ yɛmfa wo ho a we na woboa sɛsi a ɛdɛ nsuo a na nka first no yɛsɛ wɔ ɛdɛ nsuo deɛ ɛyɛ okay sɛsi a ɛnyɛ okay nti no over time no what is happening is levels ni na build it because you send free soro no na abanafo
so wase mo na menko ayi doctor young opening ne ba ko Dr. Mensah enko Dr. Mensah ho na yenkotie ne kasa kakra doctor wo so ya mamente wonka.
Hello, good morning
doctor ne edikan mekotodwe da form me pa wo chew say ya mo wagina firi ne so ya che esane say ne yen telephone hama no eye ba ko mfom so bi kakra bi bai enu nti na ye ba ko pe nti na delay yan na fa chen mesre doctor ne wo hwe a wonim a waye nhwehwemu yi galamsey yi ne wo hu renew fight adwuma ana enya adwuma.
Good morning.
Morning.
Dr. Asante. What you me can?
Metonka. Manko mura.
Me da si be there. Any meeting come on and then appeal. Na amu me de fante and a brofo no me be fa ka akra.
Ma fa fafra yeti ni nyina fante de brofo de fafra. Yo.
Me da si. Na me kwacho ansa na meka ma seminar or no. If they won't go through historical perspective regarding the use of the military against artisanal miners. Now, you must Professor Nekasano. Nekasano, I am the upper because I didn't say now military offensive intervention against artisanal small-scale mining. Only the no chance. Now, in Yankasano, mining the data. In fact, Ghana is called Gold Coast. It's mining the data. And now, 1989, and now a PNDC law, especially Jerry John Rawlings, as part of the economic recovery program, or the answer a bit to good, or there any license and send it to. In Japan, people became illegal because you don't have the license, and if you don't have a license, then it means you're considered illegal. But the point is that over 1981, they used the police to chase the miners into the bush. They confiscated their equipment, they arrested them, they lined them up within the court. At the end of the day, they returned. 1990, when the police task force starts with the bike beam, with the chasing miners, at the end of the day, they returned. 2006, there was something we call Operation Fight Illegal Mining, which was orchestrated by President Kufuor at the time. They did so many human rights abuses. They took their machines, they confiscated their machines, they arrested them. At the end of the day, they returned. 2013, there was Operation Flash Out Artisanal Small-Scale Mining. They did similar human rights abuses. The effect was that they returned. 2017, there was Operation Vanguard. They did similar. I mean, always if it's operation. At the end of the day, they returned. 2021, they brought out what is called Operation Hot, and that is the one that they have renewed. They have renewed, and they said Operation Hot is a surgical operation to stop the people from engaging in the illegality. But the miners are still returning, which means that the use of the military is not the answer and cannot stop the people from mining. Now the point is that whenever you find something with a measure and it's not working, you don't go ahead and do it. Doctor,
Doctor,
so six main reforms now it take place. One of the reforms, 6 main reforms, according to my research, one is a policy intervention, which is regulatory enactment. Now, since 1989, the government has developed not less than 30 mining laws. These 30 mining laws, only 11 contain snippets of information dealing with artisanal small-scale mining, which means that the government is not interested, I argue, it's not interested in the small-scale mine. Meanwhile, that is the kind of mining instead for the people of Ghana. Then, the second reform that I've been taking is a ban. And we saw that in 2017, they banned artisanal small-scale mining, and they set up what is called Interministerial Committee on Illegal Mining. So when they did that, there were a lot of effects. There was poverty in the mining communities, and it was supposed to last for 6 months. It lasted now for 2 years, and it affected even those people who had the license to mine. Now, the third reform is military intervention, which I've already taken you through the 6 military interventions taking place since 1989. Then the fourth one is national dialogue. The fifth one is alternative livelihood program. Now the sixth one is what is called community mining. Now none of these ones are working because these things do not address the root cause of the problem. Now let me take you on the alternative livelihood program. Now, the alternative livelihood programs that they are instituting in the mining communities, they are talking about go and farm, go and plant vegetables, go and cultivate cassava, go and plant maize. The miners go, they still come back. It is because we have not been able to understand what is called alternative livelihood program. Now, before something can become alternative or as a substitute for something, then that particular thing must be competitive enough or must be able to, become substitute for that particular thing that you are trying to stop people from doing. Now, what do I mean? When you say people should stop artisanal small-scale mining to go and farm or to go and plant vegetables, it is not the way to go. Here is the science. The point is that farming and mining are different. For farming, it takes a lot of years or a lot of period, let's say 3 months, before you can even get your harvest and even to get your money. Farming takes time. Another thing is that your crop and your animal can be affected by pests and diseases, and they can die, and you can lose your income. Then farming also is one that the remuneration in the sector is not equal or substitute enough to what the people get in the small scale. Now, when you go to the small scale mining sector, even the pit miner who is not even the manager earns more than what a farmer will earn. The small scale miners are earning something between 1,000 to 5,000 Ghana cedis a month. Even this one is for the pit miners and for those who carry the goods and the people who are selling at the site. Now, when you say the person should go and mine, the person should go and farm, that farming business cannot substitute because the remuneration in the small scale mining is more than that of the farming. Now, another point.
Dr. Harrison, Mesro, Sankomi, Yabetu, one problem I wom, ne Hamana Hoyen, inti ama emuatria na facheme, Dr. Jalilu, Mufancheme, sa topic ye babaso next week, na young abetanase, nenga dimuju menina, Dr. Kenashbe. Minimisa wonso wo tweme hamano ayo hawa mayen doctor baby a wo no me di nkomo okukoyam so wo program bi enu nti fa cheme misrawo na mum next week ye betu asa nkomo yeso Professor J prof misrawa wo de be cheyen se ye si etwa so na mum ye betu nkomo no so bio Dr. Mensa misrawa yen hamano ahaw yen nti ama bretia na misrawa mumfa ncheme next week no yenyina yebetu asa nkomo yeso nkomo ehu hia pa mufi asidi no text messages aminya wa ha no nkomo a yentumi nya nto enu nti braso se ye do bi ase yo ye kire mo se bribia no woto ani na se wo hia bribi a wo de beka wano de a ene na enye babia na woto ani hwe babi a wo se woto ani hwe bre ne bre anu bia no ye Angel Bakery na Angel Bakery no wo mu butter bread wo mu sugar bread and ne ekeka ho bribia wo hwehwe won a wo nsa beka won yewo wo cocoa bread wo wheat bread na wo hwehwe won a wo behu won wo Pig Farm Station abedi pele down one telephone number ni 059114719 026-422-7414 Angel Bakery wo se wo hwehwe bakery papa padia ene Angel original kronkron na wudi a ahotonkwan a yewo hana bre ama ho kwan se ye di dwumadi no abawie atiefo ne ahwefo mo de be kyeyen se ene yen hama na ni amoyen yen nti nkomo atuso ye bien yen ntima mo boso kura na mum migye di so nyame menkwa dasene ye beba be hye mo mato wo saase mum na mpanimfu a ye frɛ won ni nyina no nso wo beba no nga baba bo na nga pensem wo nkomo a eyihuam na ede na mobeti ni bio aseda ya mode migye di se onyame man ho kwan a dasene ye beba ha sepo na ye fia ye be fia sa asoroche aseda ya mode
Oh boys, on the beat.